Okay, another IELTS academic task 1. For this, we're going to look at a process. Now, I did a video about a process question before, but time for another one. The first one was a natural process, I think, and this is a man-made process. So there's a slight difference between the two. Anyway, I've got an example and it's on screen, so let's go and take a look. Okay, time to talk about another process question. Now, although these are not as common as other kinds of task, one graph chart, pie chart, they do occur occasionally. Now, some of my students say that they don't like them because they never know what to say, you know, oh, it's a diagram, I don't know. Well, I always say that these questions, as a matter of fact, are the easiest. And it's basically because there is no data. There's no data, so you don't have to, you know, it's like in my previous video, depending on whether you saw it first, I was talking about task 1, a line graph. And for those kind of questions, you have to pick out the key features. Now, that can be hard for some people, you know, some people tend to include every feature. So you have to pick out the main features and then include the data. 18%, 20%, 50%, etc., depending on the question. But with the process questions, there is no data. There is no data. I mean, if we take a look at this one here, it's how an ATM, you know, automatic transaction works when you put in your card to taking out cash. There's no figures, there's no data in that involved. It's purely a process, you know. Now, we've got two different kinds of process. There's a natural process, such as I don't know, the life cycle of a salmon, or how rain is made, or something similar. I don't know. It's or life cycle of a moth, or whatever, you know. So you've got the natural ones, then you've got the man-made ones. You know, how beer is brewed, how wine is made, how concrete is manufactured, etc. I mean, here, this is like a man-made one too. So, makes no difference, really. The process and the structure are basically the same. You know, the structure, let's just put this back up again. So, sentence when you paraphrase the question, as always, we have to have an overview even for a process. Now, the overview for the process, because there's no, you know, different features, well, there could be two if it's a couple of different illustrations, but for this example, it's just a single one. All that you're basically doing is mentioning if it's a man-made structure or if it's a man-made process or a natural one, list the number of stages, and that's basically it. And then the supporting details. So in the case of a process, you just list the number of stages and the vocab. Basically, you're using connecting language. First, the ATM card is inserted, after which, then, next, during, and finally, etc. So all what you're doing is basically listing the stages and using sequencing language to connect them, and that's it. Pretty straightforward. So, you know, this is why I say the process questions are indeed, as far as I'm concerned, the easiest ones. Now, as always with the academic task 1 questions, there's no figures, there's no data, there's no opinion. We don't need a conclusion. We don't need reasons why the stages are as they are. It's not an essay. It's purely what you see, the number of stages and what happens exactly. Now, I mentioned grammar and the criteria. You can find it on the British Council site. I don't know if this link will work here or not. Yes, yeah, here. So you can see these on the British Council site, or it should be in your IELTS course book if you bought any. It should be in every book. So I won't say anything further about that because I've mentioned it before in other videos and posts, and you can find it here on the British Council site. takeielts.britishcouncil.org, and you can find it there. So we'll take a look at this then. So what do you need to do first? And well, first you need to understand what is going on. You know, where's it start? What's the start point? Where's the end point? Count the stages. What happens in it exactly? So this is basically the planning stage. I mean, you are making a plan of sorts. You're not totally making one because it's not an essay, you don't need reasons or examples. So you the planning stage is more an understanding, interpreting stage rather than making an actual plan. Because again, we don't need any reasons or examples. So, paraphrase the question. Now, a word of warning. Some people simply copy the text and use it as their introduction. So they copy this. The diagram shows how a transaction works, blah, blah, blah. If you do that, the examiner is going to cross it out and take the words away. So if you write on 150 words or so and they take away 15 words, you will be short. So what you have to do is paraphrase, as we said. You've got to paraphrase. Every question you paraphrase. Okay, so so the diagram shows how a transaction works from an ATM becomes instead the illustration depicts the different stages involved in taking money out of an ATM. You just change the word order, change some of the key words. Yeah, so it's quite easy. Now, the overview, we have to summarize main features. Again, this is one of the things that people don't do, and it costs them in terms of marks. So we have to have an overview. So for hours, we might say something like, the withdrawal process involves 5 stages, ranging from the insertion of a customer's card through to the final payment of money to the customer in person. Now, that's not bad. If you want, you can maybe say something like, the diagram shows a man-made, it's a linear process, so you could say that, a man-made, oops, my clumsy fingers, a man-made linear process, blah, 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 blah. Get rid of that. I made a linear process, which involves 5 stages ranging from blah, 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 blah. Okay. So, as I said, these process overviews are it's pretty simple. That's it. Is it a natural process? Is it a man-made process? Is it a cyclical? Is it a cycle? Now, usually, perhaps not, but often the natural processes are a cyclical one. It goes round and round, whereas this is a linear process, as in it's got a start point and it's got an end point. The start point, you put in the card, the end point, you get paid. Okay? So, what you need to do then, you put the stages into a couple of paragraphs. Okay, we use linking words, as I said, first, then, next, afterwards, following, and finally, to connect your stages. Now, you can do a sentence for every stage, or you can put a couple of stages into more complex sentences. That would be fine. So I say this is pretty easy. Let's just take a look at how it all works. So we could say, first of all, Mr. Smith inserts his card and enters his PIN into the machine. So that's the first stage, stage 1. And the electronic message is then sent to the central network, which is forwarded to his own bank, blah, blah, blah. The branch who is taking money will not issue until it has verified, so that's the next stage, that sufficient money is in Mr. Smith's home account. As soon as his home bank processes and verifies money is debited, okay, for his account, the bank responds and confirms, he takes his card and his money and leaves. And finally, settlement is reached between the two banks. So that's pretty clear as to where the stages are. Now that's only 160 words, but that would do. You know, it's over 150 words. It covers all the stages. You can maybe put a few more words in as padding, but there's no real need. That would basically do. So if we take a look at it, right, if we put it all together, okay. So, introduction. The illustration depicts the different stages involved in taking money out of an ATM. The overview. Withdrawal process involves 5 stages, or as I changed it above, a man-made linear process which involves 5 stages. Blah, 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 blah. Then the data. First of all, Mr. Smith inserts his card. Stage 1, stage 2. Stage 3, stage 4, stage 5, and that's it. 160 words. Job done. So that's pretty straightforward, really. That's it. I mean, again, as I keep saying in different videos, this is one reason why task 1 is only 1/3 of your total score, because there's nothing to it. The essay is a much more involved task. Well, obviously it's 2/3, you know, twice the number. So obviously it requires a lot more, and you know, you need reasons, examples, you need a good logical flow, progression of your ideas. You need specific reasons and examples. So in terms of management of time, some people do the essay task first, because, you know, that's the most important one, or they try and knock off task 1 as quickly as possible, 15 minutes, maybe 20, then they've got at least 40 minutes for the essay task. Okay? Anyway, so that's pretty good, that's pretty straightforward. So what I'll do, I'll put the files on the blog, and you can see it and copy it. And if you've got any questions, of course, you can send me a message at any time. So, great. I'll see you later.